All right, guys, welcome to our week 7 lecture on organizational change. First, I want to brag on you guys how good you're doing. Took me a while to grade your second week's projects just because when you're having to read, 3 to 5 page papers and you're having to listen to, 11, 12, 15-minute podcasts, it takes a little while, but they were fantastic. They were really, really good. I look forward to seeing what you guys produce um, for your third assignment. So for me, organizational change is one of those things I really enjoy. I didn't like it initially, the topic of it, but I had a class on it in my PhD program, and it really kind of opened my eyes to it. So understanding, and you guys know this, sport and really the world in general now, but sport in particular is a constant change. You have people enter and leave an organization. You have new products and programs develop, some die off. You have change that's planned over time, that's kind of systematically from within. And then you have sometimes external pressures that force you to change quickly and sometimes uncomfortably. So change can occur really in several areas, but we're going to look at 4 main ones. First, technology, and this is really how the organization uses its skills to deliver whatever its services or knowledge base is. And I'll try to give an example on each of these. So obviously, when programs like Huddle first came out, I was still coaching, and it took a while for some old school coaches to evolved to use that technology. Sometimes products and services, they that area changes. You have the addition, deletion, and modification of certain services or products. Sometimes it's the structures and systems. So it might be the leadership that changes, and then you have people change. People come and go, how they act, how they relate to each other changes. So that's just kind of the broad areas of change. And you really have 2 types of changes. You have radical change, which really is the kind people I think dread the most. It's when it's exactly what it is. It completely is changing the direction something's going, the way something's being done. Then you have kind of a convergent type change, which is more of a fine tuning of what's going on. So there's been tons of ways to come up with, and people over the years have developed models of change, steps for change. Usually those steps somewhat looks like kind of diagnosing the problem in the organization, developing solutions, trying to figure out why people might be resistant to it. Coming up with a strategy to implement that change, and then reviewing it. I'll give you at the end of the lecture kind of my preferred way of doing this, but this is kind of the theory behind it. But there's some perspectives at which we can look at change, and I think these, while they're independent, they're their own perspective. They're not dealt with separately. They're all of these or some of these could be going on all at the same time within an organization that's changing. So the first one is resource dependence. And understand that, guys, most organizations are highly dependent on access to resources. And resources is a broad term. That could be like raw materials. So for instance, Nike, has to have access to the stuff to make their shoes. But it could be Reinhardt's or Lander or any other small college. Their resource are students. And so sometimes these environments can change pretty quickly, like we're in right now, where you can have a resources become scarce. And so when that happens, and the resource you need is not there, then it forces managers and people in leadership to change really quickly in a response to try to acquire more resources or retain more resources. Population ecology. What this is that change doesn't happen to single organizations, but it happens to a whole group of organizations. And it's usually kind of a 3-step type process. So what happens is, and think about this, and I'm going to use it as colleges as an example. So think of colleges as a whole deal. So there's usually some variation in that whole group of people. What's going on? The COVID-19 is forcing everybody to go online, and so the organizations that stay prosperous and stay successful are the ones that best fit in that new environment and the demands of it. And so obviously at Reinhardt, we went to using Canvas. I think if we had not gone to Canvas, we would have had a really, really difficult time this last 7 weeks on dealing with online teaching. The life cycle approach is pretty easy to understand, guys. Organizations are no different than people or animals. They're created, they transform or develop, and then they decline. It's sequential. It's very predictable. You see this a lot of times in organizations that are built around technology that phases in and phases out. You see it in social media a lot. Institutional theory basically somewhat develops or talks about how change kind of helps explain how organizations are kind of similar within a given population of a field. And so it will help you ensure that you have continued resources that are necessary for your operation, and that you have the things you need in order to be able to deal with whatever change or whatever environment that you're operating in. You have to understand evolution and revolution. Their organizations are going to resist change. I mean, it's amazing. Even when you put it in their face that they may fail, organizations a lot of times will continue to do what they've been doing and not make the adjustments for survival. I wish I had the answer for it, but it is the honest to God's truth. So evolutionary change happens in organizations that, where they kind of make these incremental adjustments. They don't change the overall structure. They just make the needed adjustments to stay alive and be successful. And revolutionary change is kind of a response to a crisis within the organization's environment. And it usually requires a really sharp shift in strategy and how people do things. Colleges are going through this right now, particularly Division I colleges. And you're really going to see right now in the next couple of weeks the athletic directors that are working for their organizations, or they're taking the easy way out. You're going to see the ones like at Oregon State, Iowa State that are having their coaches who are very well paid, their athletic directors take pay cuts. And those pay cuts will likely save sports and save people. And you're going to see other athletic departments that see this as an opportunity to cut non-revenue generating sports. And you're going to see that happen. So what causes organizational change? So we already talked about this a little bit. It can be from external or internal. Externally, it's a lot of reasons. Okay, like I said, it could be technology. It could be government legislation. It could be COVID-19. Okay, you don't know. These are the ones you can't control as necessarily. Internally, a lot of times, this is what we're going to focus on. Change is driven by people inside, people who are change agents. And understand, most organizations need to change some of the way they do things. So for us, we need to understand, how can we be a change agent and get things accomplished? And understand there's resistance to change. And this is what's going to be in your discussion this week, is there are four main reasons for not changing. There's self-interest, there's lack of trust or not understanding why we're changing. There's a difference in the assessment of what's going to happen when we do change, and then there's the cost of changing. And so this is what we're going to deal with in the discussion, and I think it'll be fascinating to see what you guys have to say. But when we're dealing with resistance of change, there's a bunch of approaches that you can use to do this. You can educate people and communicate with them. You can give them participation. You can establish change teams, or people who are going to help aid this change. You're going to have to find people who are kind of championing ideas. And you're going to have to help facilitate and support. And that's going to involve a lot of things. That's going to involve negotiation. It's going to involve manipulation. It's going to involve coercion. It's going to involve allowing people to have a say-so in what's going on. And one of the major challenges is kind of confronting all sport organizations is, and it goes along with change, is this need to be innovative. And I think one of the reasons that organizations are forced to change is because they don't innovate. And we're not going to talk a ton about innovation, but that can be administratively, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it could be changing leadership. It could be changing the structure of leadership. It could be from a technological standpoint. So like, we added Canvas. That was a change for us. We needed to do that. Or it could be a whole new product line, or a whole new way of thinking about how you do your job, how your organization functions, a whole change in the innovation of service. And so this is what I want to get to. This is the last thing. This is my preferred way of thinking about change. And this is what your fourth assignment is going to be based on. It's Cotter's eight-step change model. And so you can pretty much institute change following this model, and it will work. And so the first step is you have to create urgency. That means you have to create an environment where people see why we need to change. Then you have to start to form real powerful coalitions. You have to get people on your side that see the same thing you see. Then you have to kind of create a vision for this change. What's this change going to look like? Then you have to communicate that vision to everybody else in the organization. And then you empower action. You have to give people responsibility to start to drive this change. And then step 6 is really important. You have to have quick wins. And what I mean by that is, if this process is going to take 5 years, people aren't going to wait 5 years to see something good's happening. You have to show them something quickly and often that keeps them on the hook to see the thing through. And then once you start to get these quick wins, you've got to build momentum. And then once you finally implement the change, you've got to make it stick. You've got to make sure that you're controlling your environment and doing the things you need to make it work. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Stay safe on this Sunday.